It's a 60-minute drive for a 60-minute game. After all the miles we've traveled, we're almost there. After all the hours we've worked, one more can make us legends. After all.
Good morning. It must be Sunday morning because we're back here talking college football here on The Last Word. I have, of course, Jeff Barnes, of course, Joe Cardozo in the house, and, of course, Brock Vieira looking bright-eyed and bushy-tailed this morning out there on the West Coast. How's it going, guys?
Doing good, man. Good morning, guys. Another great Saturday.
Indeed. Brock, how you feeling?
Feeling good. A little bit tired, but excited to talk with you guys.
Yeah, well, we got a lot to talk about because there was some great college football played yesterday, and there was some really, really dubious choices by a lot of coaches yesterday. So let's get into them. We'll run through the quick scores on the scoreboard, and then we'll get to the main matchups. Florida all over Vanderbilt, 38-14. The U finds a way. One of those games that we talked about, two stupid balls with a bottle of Gatorade. The U finds a way to lose to Georgia Tech 23-20 in the final seconds. Colorado pulls it out versus Arizona State 27-24. Oh, man. I did not see this score coming. UAB 56-35 over USF. Didn't see that one coming. 27-20. Ole Miss takes down Arkansas. Georgia all over Kentucky 51-13. Iowa tops Purdue 20-14. Now Kakalaka 40-7 over Syracuse. And, of course, the shootout now, LSU's big shootout in Missouri. As everywhere it goes, the shootout with LSU, 49-49. And if you stayed up to watch the end of that Miami game, this is going to be the constant theme with almost all the matchups we talk about today. So, yes, if you didn't see it, Miami had a chance to salt that game away. All they had to do was take a knee. They decided to run the football. The back is fighting for extra yards as he's going down. He gets the ball ripped out. Questionable whether the kid was down or not. It kind of looks like the elbow is touching, but the ref said differently. So Georgia Tech gets the ball, then goes and scores on a deep ball on a scramble drill, takes the lead and wins. Cristobal goes down for the first time this season. And you got to be sick about that if you're Miami. But that is not the matchup we're talking about. Let's jump right into another one where you can talk about some dubious coaching choices. Let's talk about the Notre Dame loss to Louisville yesterday. Notre Dame goes down to Louisville, heavily favored, and they lose 33-20. Brock, I know you love to really kick the Irish when they're down, so why don't you start with that one?
Yeah, I mean, realistically, it doesn't matter who you put as the head coach or coordinators at Notre Dame. There's a stink about that program that has risen up through the early 2000s and just stuck with them for a long time. And this is the typical standard Notre Dame Fighting Irish loss that we all come to expect from this program. I mean, Louisville is no scrub. I want to make that very clear. But this is a team that has first-year head coach, a new offensive system, and they're firing on all cylinders. Notre Dame has been in this defensive system for 3 years now, and it still has some major question marks about it. They still don't have the DBs in the secondary for me to be comfortable with them heading forward as they go on to play against other prolific passing offenses. Notre Dame can't handle competent offense coordinators. Notre Dame, like I mentioned, doesn't have the DBs. What really can you say about it besides the fact that what is the difference between this Marcus Freeman-led Notre Dame Fighting Irish team, the Brian Kelly Fighting Irish teams, and the Charlie Weiss Fighting Irish teams, even the Tyrone Willingham Fighting Irish teams, if you want to go back, teams that get overinflated because they play an easy schedule, and when the going gets tough, they constantly lose. I was on them this year. I don't really feel great about them anymore. And looking forward, maybe days are brighter with Marcus Freeman, but it just feels like the same old Notre Dame Fighting Irish team to me.
Joe?
Yeah, definitely a shock. I mean, of course, Jeff Brown's off to a great start, like you mentioned, with Louisville, but you just expected more from Notre Dame, especially after the tough loss they had against Ohio State. You would think you'd use that as fuel to carry you the rest of the season. The inability to stop the run, uncontested turnovers, just some bad mistakes as far as the passing game goes. And I just don't understand why, in my opinion, no adjustments from Notre Dame on both sides of the ball. They didn't make any adjustments on the defensive side of the ball, try to slow down Louisville's running game. No adjustments on the offensive side of the ball. You see you can't run the ball effectively. Okay, throw the ball to your tight ends, quick screens. No adjustments at all from Notre Dame on both sides of the ball. And kind of like what Brock said, if you're Marcus Freeman, you got to kind of take a look in the mirror and see, what am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? And make some adjustments. Am I shocked Louisville won the game? Not really. I'm shocked in the fashion that Louisville won the game. I just expected more from Notre Dame.
Indeed. Earlier this season, when Notre Dame started off winning games, I was very pleased to see the offense change. A lot more downhill, a lot more physical. Where has that gone the last couple of weeks? Because that's one of the reasons why they've lost 2 of their last 3. You lost to Ohio State because you couldn't be physical enough. You lost this game because you darn sure weren't physical enough. They showed you they were not going to let you run the ball on them. They stacked the box. Okay, Notre Dame got in the 3rd and short 5 times. And each of the times they tried to be cute. Okay, 3 tight ends to the opposite side. Nobody backside to pick up the extra man that they stacked in the box. Normally, as a coordinator, you put 2 tight ends on each side of the line. It allows you to pick up that extra man backside and pound the ball up the middle. They did not do that. Did they use a lead blocker? They did not do that. Okay, so trying to be finesse against a team that's hitting you in the mouth is what got you knocked out yesterday. So you have to look at the players, because there were some dumb plays made by the players yesterday. All right, you got to go to the film and really fix that. But as a coach, I go back to that film and I throw up in a bucket, because there were times where I, as a coach, had a chance to put my players in a chance to succeed, and I didn't do it. I kept putting them out there in failing situations, and when they failed, you came to the sideline and you tried to draw something up on a board that didn't make any sense. It was just poor decision making. The fourth quarter, going for it in that situation. People rip Marcus Freeman for it. I don't rip him for it, because plain and simple, you hadn't done anything worth a damn anyway offensively to go out there and score religiously in the fourth quarter. So you had to take your shot, or it was over anyway. You weren't going to stop them. Let's just face it. They were not going to stop them if they punted that ball away. So all it did was put the pain away early. Instead of waiting till 2 minutes to get your guts ripped out, you got it done at 7. It's the only difference in that game. To me, it came down to coaching, a lot of situational football. They failed at. Yes, you had times where you got them off the field, a penalty got them the first down, and you put them right back on the field. It worked to Notre Dame's advantage, too. They were stopped on a 3rd down. They got a penalty on a 4th down and gave them a 1st down. So those things exchange, but the stupid calls and stupid situations, the stupid management of that offense and defense is what put them in that situation. As much as they praise Al Golden, you got to get it to him this week, because plain and simple, he got it run down his throat. Okay, and he had no chance to fix it.
Yeah, you are absolutely right. And before we move on, I just want to add in, you have more experience as a coordinator, so you can maybe attest to this. But I believe when you are designing offense, it obviously you got to talk about X's and O's, but it's also about mindset. It's also about setting the tempo, setting the pace, dictating the action, dictating the physicality. Physicality is based off 2 things. 3 things. Desire, belief, and effort. And I saw none of that on that field yesterday. What Gerard Parker has been doing these past couple weeks is damn near criminal. Why Sam Hartman is under center more is beyond me. I'm so sick and tired of offensive coordinators throughout this entire college football continuously running the football out of shotgun. It is a very ineffective way to move an offense, and we're seeing teams do it over and over again. I'm going to mention that in some of these games you got coming up too. When it comes to Notre Dame, we know what they are. You obviously don't trust your receivers enough to throw them the ball consistently. Why not put your quarterback under center, get your big boys headed in one direction, and get some yards on the ground? I don't understand what they're doing. And quite frankly, Notre Dame, you just eliminated yourself from the college football playoff, and you have nobody to blame but yourself.
Indeed. In the first 3 times you were stopped on 3rd and short, you could have put him in the gun, fine. But There's simple combinations you throw in 3 steps that even in the gun is catch and throw. Slant out combination, right? You don't have to really trust your receivers a lot to win on a slant press coverage, right? You definitely trust your tight end to run the quick out. So 3rd and 1, you're telling me you couldn't run that combination? You couldn't protect the 3-step drop? If you couldn't do that, you have bigger problems, right? If Notre Dame couldn't do that, they have bigger problems, right, than not being able to run the football. Okay? If you can't protect the 3-step drop, if you don't trust your quarterback to throw it, right, you're going to have, no wonder you're going to be out of the playoff because you'd have bigger problems than being able to run the football on 3rd and 1. Okay, if you can't trust your offense to get you 1 yard in the passing game, 2 yards in the passing, that's a problem.
I think we also have to give credit to Jeff Brom, who I thought him and his OC called a great game. They did end up in that formation. They did run the ball. I saw tight ends being used as a fullback to create some extra running lanes. So I think you got to give Louisville credit too for calling a great game. And when they saw it was working, they stuck with it. A lot of times we talk about it on this show almost every week. The offense has something working for them. The defense has a way to, and all of a sudden, for whatever reason, they go away from that. And I think Louisville did the exact opposite.
Yes, you're right. And based off that, I want to jump on that point too. We talk about this Notre Dame defense. This is the best offensive coordinated offense they've seen this entire season. And I have some major questions concerning that Ryan Day, Brian Hartline offense. I have no concerns with this Brian Brom, Jeff Brom offense. I mean, the question is when we look further, Notre Dame has games against Clemson. We'll see how much influence Garrett Riley has over that offense. Will it be more his offense at Clemson? But if it is more his, how will Notre Dame respond? How are they going to respond against USC, who runs a completely different offense than what they've seen the entire year? There's major concerns from Notre Dame regarding this season that they need to address immediately, or all that potential you had in the first 5 weeks is going to be out the door sooner than later.
Yeah, I have less concerns of them going up against Clemson's offense than I do USC's. Clemson to me is one of those teams that we this year especially we put in the top 25 based on name. Because if you look at Clemson, that is not a top 25 team right now. Yeah. So that is one team that when you look at Louisville now 6-0, that the fact they were barely top 25 is a discredit to Louisville. That is a way better team than they were ranked. You could say the same thing about Maryland, who wasn't ranked, who was going toe-to-toe with Ohio State throughout that first half and through the third quarter. How they were unranked while we have teams like Clemson ranked way too high is ridiculous. So that's a whole nother story. Matter of fact, speaking of Maryland, we'll jump into that one a little bit later. But we got to move on to the Red River rivalry. And boy, oh boy, was this a game. And yes, you could say a whole bunch of things about this one. In the end, it was Dylan Gabriel saving the day for Oklahoma. But a gutsy play, stepping up in the pocket, throwing in a 3-yard strike in the back of the end zone. You give the Sooners the lead for good, breaking the hearts of Longhorn Nation. And boy, oh boy, what can I say? We always say it, Texas, you hired the coach. He's an offensive guru. He always gives you that game where you go, dude, you had it. What did you do? What did you do? This was that game this year. This was that game. He had some real iffy ones early in the season. He had some great wins. He had some he was like, ooh, you just snuck out of there with one. This is the game where you look at it and go, you gave it away again.
I will, just so I could see and hear Brock's rant on Sark and the play calls he made for Texas. So I got to let Brock go first with his reaction to this game.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And before I get to Steve Sarkisian, I just want to give a shout out to Oklahoma, Brent Venables, and Dylan Gabriel. I've been very harsh on Oklahoma since the hiring of Venables. This was a proven game, and he got it done. He got it done in spectacular fashion. His offense operated at a higher level than I expected, which is a testament to him. His defense got done when they needed to, and they ran the driver's seat for the college football playoff. I think for a lot of Hawaii people, it's a little bit deja vu with Dylan Gabriel because we all saw his dad step up in big moments. His dad, Garrett Gabriel, when he defeated BYU at 89 and 90 through both running and passing. And to see his son do that on the biggest stage in college football this weekend. I think it was just a spectacular thing to see. With that being said, Steve Sarkisian has his head up his hoo-ha for what he called in that fourth quarter of that game. First of all, I want to begin with that goal line stand by Oklahoma. That wasn't more of a stand by Oklahoma. It was more of Sark having, again, his head up his hoo-ha. In bringing in your two defensive tackles for one play as fullbacks, you got to go power offense. I understand that. I support it. I think it was the right call. It didn't work. That's football. You go, you take a second, and you readjust, and you attack them in a different way. No, he kept those two defensive tackles in the game for three plays that went nowhere. And then on fourth down, that's when you finally put in Xavier Worthy, AD Mitchell, and the rest of the gang, and then run that little quick screen that got stopped. That was issue number one for me. Issue number two was the soft defensive coverage that you allowed your team to run at the end of the game when Oklahoma was driving. You knew Oklahoma was going to dink and dunk you. You know the clock stops on first down under 2 minutes. You know that they can get yards on you, but instead of actually being a coach and being the man and telling your team to go out there and be aggressive, you run super soft coverage. You allow them to eat underneath and allow them to gain tremendous amount of field position in a very short amount of time. That's very counterproductive to what you're trying to accomplish. And then in the end, when there was about 30 seconds left, it was pretty clear Oklahoma was about to score. Instead of using one of the two timeouts that you had left, you allow the clock to run down to about 15 seconds by the time Oklahoma finally scored the touchdown, not only giving them the game, but ruining any shot of you being able to do anything effective when you got the ball back. There's complete mismanagement in the fourth quarter all across the field. Even though Sark has gotten better at his fourth quarter meltdowns, they still poke their slimy little head continuously, and it just happened today. Oklahoma won this game without a doubt, but Sark did a lot of things in his own way for Texas to lose it. And Texas needs to be looking at themselves right now. And if they ask themselves, could we have won that game? The answer is absolutely. You should have won that game. And the fact that you didn't proves once again why the Longhorns are the joke of college football and will never be legitimate college football contenders because they allow things like this to continuously happen to them every single year.
Joe?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just start with the game-winning touchdown with Brock. I couldn't understand what the defense was. The way they were playing defense, it was as if you were up by double digits and you were just trying to get the game to be finished. You were up by a score, and if they score, they win the game. Why wouldn't you still be in attack mode? Just didn't understand that. To the point of the timeouts being left on the table and get to take them to the next game. I'm not sure if he knows that or not. And when you see the motion that was run by Oklahoma and your defense did just all, which is why the guy was wide open, wouldn't you scream timeout, timeout? So you could talk to the defensive players about that. I didn't understand that either as well. But I mean, at the end of the day, I give all the credit to Oklahoma. This is a huge win for Brent Venables. Him trying to change the culture of Oklahoma. It's definitely what I call a signature win. You had Kyler Murray. You had Baker Mayfield. I saw Trey Young walking around with the Bob Stoops Suns jersey on. It's a big win for OU. A pro definitely in the teeth last year. A lot of negative talk during the summer. So for them, definitely enjoy this win. I think for Texas, if you're thinking college football play, you shouldn't be thinking it now. I saw some stuff on social media about if these two teams face off again in the Big 12 championship game and Texas wins, somehow they can sneak in that way. I don't think that's possible either because you got the SEC with its big, mighty, powerful self leering over top of you. But I definitely think if I'm a Texas Longhorn fan, I'm at my head coach, and I have multiple questions to ask him. A lot of who's, what, where's, and why's.
Yeah. Sarkisian didn't do himself any favors.
Not any at all.
You had you were down 3. I'm sorry, you were up 3, but you left them a minute 17. That's a losing recipe. That's way too much time for a 3-point lead. You had chances to run that clock down a little bit on that final drive. And I don't mean by just literally running the ball all the time. Shorter, quicker throws, screens, things when you got close enough that you have to manage clock and get that score. There's times as a coordinator when you're just going for the win. No doubt about it. But you also have to think about, okay, we want to get this win, but we can't leave our defense out there with an eternity and just a 3-point lead. You can't do that. In that's when you become a head coach. These are the scenarios you're supposed to master. So he's had enough years now to understand 3 points in a minute 17. Maybe I need to run a draw here to eat about 20 seconds off that clock, just in case I give this ball back to them. I'd rather give it to them with a 3-point lead in 30 seconds as opposed to a minute 17. So while we've seen coaches go out there, have a crucial decision with 7 minutes left in the game, make a choice. How could you not make that choice with under 2 minutes left? It's got to be some smart forward thinking by coaches. They're not doing that. They're thinking in the most simplest terms. There's too much play around in college football. Okay, between the clock stopping on first downs, that doesn't happen in the NFL. So that clock keeps churning in the NFL. It's an eternity, a minute 17 in college football. You have to think forward. You have to think, I can get this lead, but I can't give them a minute 17 to go down there with a 3-point lead. He set himself up for that. So once again, we talked about the two stupid pills in a bottle of Gatorade. Well, Sark, you broke it out this week with a Red River Rivalry because you had a chance to do the right thing for your defense. Eat a little time because you could take your time at that point. A minute and change, okay, with the ball and about to score. You can take your time a little bit because you don't want to give the ball back if you get in the end zone. You want it to be, we score, we have no time to do anything. And he didn't do that. And he's at the point as a head coach where you have to understand these things. So while we sit there, we talk about, oh man, it was a great comeback by Oklahoma. Yes, it was. But you facilitated that by leaving them the time to do it. It is what it is. Sark does it every year.
I also want to raise the point that the reason why Sark can't be a forward thinker is because he's also the play caller for Texas. And a play caller needs to also be in the moment. How can you be forward thinking when you're in the moment? There hasn't, to my recollection, to my knowledge, since assistant coaches have become prevalent in football, so that goes back to at least 100 years, no coach has ever won a national championship being their team play caller. It's never happened in the BCS, and never happened in the college football playoff era. It's never happened in the BCS era, and I don't remember it ever being happening in the old voting era when you could have like 5 national champions. You know, it's impossible, and yet Boy Genius over there thinks that he can do it. You know what he does all the time? He just crouches in his white pants on the ground, doing a couple of these with his hands, and blows the game. He blew his first Red River Rivalry when they were up 28-7, then they lost. They blew this one. They've blown so many games. I can only name 2 impressive wins since he's been there. It's Alabama this year and then Kansas State last year, right? And that didn't have anything to do with anything because Kansas State still ended up winning the Big 12, and Alabama will probably be in the SEC championship game. And where will Texas be? Maybe in the Big 12 championship game, but if they lose another conference game, they might not even make it. I think Texas wins in the rematch, but what has Sark and his staff shown us to say that we can be really confident in that? I don't have anything.
Do you guys think if Texas does win the Big 12 championship, they have a chance to get into the Final Four still,
Absolutely.
even with this loss?
They still do.
Yeah.
Even enough one-loss teams for them to get in. We still have a bunch of undefeateds, but you're seeing those guys go down on a weekly basis now, right? So you look at the schedules. You know, Michigan and Ohio State have to meet at some point, so that's one of those guys going to have a loss. Penn State will have a loss at some point. It's got to be both of those guys. You think about who else is undefeated out there? USC. USC is going to run into somebody, whether it's Utah. Although I don't think this is their year to beat them because they just don't have enough offense. But USC is known to blow some games late in the season. Don't be surprised they go out there and lose to a team that, how do they lose to them? The way Notre Dame is playing, they shouldn't lose to Notre Dame, but they might. So there's enough teams that'll take a loss, maybe even a second loss, that keep them alive. But and if you go into that game, let's say, right, Oklahoma's still undefeated, right?
Yeah.
Oklahoma goes into that game, they lose to Texas. Now you got both of those teams with one loss. All right. So who goes in? They split the head-to-head, right? So that's a quagmire in itself. So yeah, I think they're not done. But you have no more room for error. You have to win out to have your best chance of getting in. Speaking of coaching decisions going awry, let's slide on over to the battle of the master versus student. We're talking about Bama, A&M, Jimbo versus Saban. Jimbo's gotten them a few times in the past few years, but not this time. Master Yoda wins 26-20. And let's talk about it. We let Brock, beat up on everybody so far, Joe. It's your turn to start this one off.
Jimbo Fisher, man. This guy, man, I would love to trade places with him just to get his paychecks. How many times are we going to allow this guy to have these big games? And we knew it was going to happen. Like, you're a very brave person if you're a Texas A&M fan who went into the game thinking you guys are really going to win, because I knew it was only a matter of time before Jimbo'd it and a loss came. I think if you're Alabama, things I saw I like. That defense is getting better and much more improved. Are they the elite Alabama defenses of old? No, but I'm starting to see a major improvement from that defense week in and week out. I think that for Jalen Monroe, a great confidence builder for him, 300 yards passing. I want to say two or three touchdown passes yesterday. So I think for Alabama, lots to build off of from this past game. If you're Texas A&M, I feel sorry for you if once again you were sipping on a nice ice-cold Jimbo Fisher Kool-Aid drink thinking they were going to turn this thing around and this would be the year they get it together, because you were duped once again. I think you're A&M, back to the drawing board. I mean, how many times can we see them with the top 3 recruiting class and then the results are what we see yesterday? I think for Alabama, just Nick's doing what he does, man. Kind of reminds me of Tom Izzo. Their team is kind of hodgepodge in the beginning of the season, and as the season goes on, they coach, they teach, they build, and you see by the time the season gets to an end, that team is completely different than what they were in week 1, and I think you're starting to see that with this Alabama team.
Brock?
Yeah, no, definitely. Jalen Milroe is getting much more comfortable in this incompetent offense run by Tommy Rees, which is a great thing for him, but also the offense can only take you so far because, once again, he's got his head up his hoo-ha. Jermaine Burton had himself a day. His draft stock completely rose. The wide receiver, he is just incredible. The Johnson brothers, they were pretty legit. I mean, they were hooking up a couple times, Max to his tight end brother. But at the end of the day, can we name one star player on Texas A&M right now? Can we name one star player on Texas A&M like ever since Jimbo Fisher took over? No, right? Like maybe DeMarvin Leal at one point was like him, but that's it. When Kevin Sumlin was there, love him or hate him, he always brought in dudes. He brought in. I think either he was there already, or obviously he had coached up Johnny Manziel, Kenny Thrill-Hill, Kyler Murray, Kyle Allen. He had Mike Evans there. Yeah, Jake Matthews there. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, like these are legitimate NFL talents. Who are the NFL talent? Yeah, exactly. So even Michael, the running back, he had a couple of years.
Michael,
yeah. So
I forgot about him.
Yeah, exactly. So who are the guys that you said that? I mean, Kenyon Green, I think is his only first rounder. I can't really name a Texas A&M player that played under Jimbo Fisher that's doing extremely well in the league at the moment. I'm sure there's one, I just can't think of them. And that's kind of been the trend for A&M. I have a lot of personal thoughts about Texas A&M in general, but it's clear that this relationship has soured to the point it's not sustainable anymore. I mean, you have two of the biggest crooks in the history of college football as your coordinators in Brian Petrino and DJ Durkin, and you're stealing all the money from the boosters. So when is enough going to be enough? When have people going to realize Texas and Oklahoma are coming? You're your rivals from old. And when they enter College Station, they're going to boat race you every single year if you don't make a change now. Until they recognize that, this is the same thing we're going to talk about until we die. Or until Jimbo Fisher leaves. It's this.
Amen.
And we talked about situations again. They were down 9, right? Down 9.
Yeah.
And they get in the red zone with 4 minutes left. Okay? And they're down there, and of course they have the penalty that backs them up. So they get to the 4th down situation. There's 2 minutes and change left in this game. Why not go for it? When you think about it, okay, if you go for it and you get the 6, you only need 3. You can stop them. You can do more with less time, right? To get the field goal to tie it and send it into overtime, as opposed to going for the field goal, trying to get a stop on. First of all, you kick the onside kick. Of all things, you don't do that in that situation, right? You don't give them the short field. So there were so many mind-boggling decisions by Jimbo and his staff in the last 4 minutes of this game that really make you go, are you really this coach that everybody claims you are? Because I haven't seen it. Not since the Jameis Winston championship game have I seen this coaching staff under Jimbo Fisher go out there and show you that they're legitimately legit. I'm tired of watching coaches who everybody says you have to have a master's degree to be a college head coach go out there and make grade school decisions. I really am. I really am. I'm insulted as a coach. I'm insulted as an evaluator. I'm insulted as a football enthusiast to see these decisions by guys that they say they're great because they have a higher education. This higher education isn't showing me anything when it comes to football knowledge. So when you think of the situation as a head coach, we are responsible for situations. Okay, your coordinators are responsible for calling things in those situations, but it's up to us to master it. Know our football team, put us in the right situation at that time. We are consistently seeing this. Okay, and we can beat up on college football players all we want. So yes, they do deserve some of the blame for this. But when you are putting them in bad situations, that is on us as coaches. And we are seeing that consistently. Every game we've talked about so far has had situational mismanagement by coaching. And that is a problem. Because these are the guys that you're paying the most money to. Forget NIL. NIL pales in comparison to what you're paying these coaches. And they get to bounce on you in the middle of a contract for more money after making decisions like this. Jimbo didn't get fired at Florida State. He bounced for A&M for more money. And to give you this? I'm sorry. I'm beyond the pale with coaching and what we're being told are great coaches. This is not great coaching. No. This is far from it. Nah. And it's about time we get back to guys understanding how to win, how to put their team in position to win, how to master the situations they're being paid to master, and to get the job done. If you fail because you made the right choice and we just didn't execute, then you could go over that on a chalkboard. But I can't sit down with a kid and tell him, you know what, we should have got the field goal here, we should have got the onside kick, and then we should have gone out there and scored. That's living in a best case scenario world. That's not the common thread that's normally going to happen. Right? You got to also think about the good and the bad of each situation. What's most likely going to happen? What's most likely going to happen on an onside kick is you're not going to get it. They're not high percentage. So why would you put it on your team with 2 minutes left to go get an onside kick when you could have kicked it deep, trusted your defense to get you a stop on their end of the field where you can now go down there and try and get you a field goal with less than 2 minutes to win the game? Maybe even less than a minute, but knowing the college rules in under 2 minutes that the clock's going to stop on first downs, you can get a field goal in that situation. However, you're not going to get 6 points in that situation in most cases. So that was a very dumb decision by the coaches, once again putting their team in a bad situation to win the game. You can't do that against the chess master on the opposite side named Nick Saban. It doesn't work that way. Jimbo, you were failing your kids by doing that to them in those situations. Those kids were heartbroken yesterday. They felt they had a chance. They played their butts off. And you know what? You failed them in that situation. Don't go into that meeting room on Monday and say, you guys got to do better. Say, you know what? We screwed you. We got to do better. That's what a responsible head coach does.
Yeah, but the problem is, sorry, boss.
Go ahead, Brad.
So what I was going to say is that, those kids are heartbroken, but it's also like falling in love with the promiscuous lady at school. Like, you're setting yourself up by committing to a Jimbo Fisher-led program. And you know what? You know how I mentioned that no head coach has won a national championship that called his own play? You know, there actually is one, Jimbo Fisher. And that's why he has such an inflated ego. It's because he's the only one who's ever done it. But what he's failed to recognize is that the reason why he did it is because he had a literal NFL roster on both sides of the ball that year at Florida State. Jameis, Dalvin Cook, Devontae Freeman, Kelvin Benjamin. Yep. On the other side, he had, I think, Dalvin Tomlinson, Ronald Darby, young Jalen Ramsey. That's just who we're rattling off the top of my head. It's not even looking at who's actually on the team. And they went against an Auburn team that I think had like one or two dudes on that defense that went to the NFL. And they needed a kickoff return to win that game in general. But we're not going to go back in 2014 talk about that. We're going to talk about right now. And the thing is, Boy Genius think that he has all the answers because he's done it at the highest level over and over again, because he took over for Bobby Bowden and won a national championship, because he was one of the first coaches to get that $100 million deal, because he got an extension on top of that $100 million deal. When you have all those things happen to you, it gives you a sense of confidence that allows you to make stupid-ass decisions. And that's exactly what we see day in and day out, week in and week in and week out with this Texas A&M program. And you know what? I could not be happier that's happening to such a program like Texas A&M. First of all, the Midnight Yell is one of the most oddest things I've ever seen in my entire life. I get you the concept, but the execution is horrible. Your hosts are not funny. The jokes are corny, and it's a very weird experience. Your cadets aren't even in the military, so what was that about? You guys suck in the SEC in general. You guys are still holding on to Johnny Manziel's Heisman year, where the biggest thing you guys have ever wanted to move was the Cotton Bowl. That's it. I'm pretty sure Vanderbilt has bigger wins than you. Texas A&M is the biggest joke in all college football, and they deserve it for consistently sticking with a guy that won't get the job done. So, you know what? You guys say you reap what you sow, and the grass ain't greener.
I just think, Jeff, that Jimbo Fisher's a good case of somebody just being exposed. I mean, like we talked about it. You had a Florida State team that was lined up for you. It's kind of like a college football team. But I didn't feel this way, but I think about a lot of people who felt that way about Barry Switzer when he went to Dallas Cowboys. It was Jimmy Johnson's team. All the roster was lined up. All he had to do was just show up and don't make a mistake and they'll win. George Seifert. It's not your 49ers. Just show up, don't make any dumb mistakes, and you'll win. I think Jimbo Fisher, for these last couple of years, just being exposed. A decent offensive coordinator, not the mastermind coach and culture builder that Texas A&M thought they were getting when they got him from Florida State. And they got to figure something out. I mean, if I'm A&M, I just bite the bullet. I do the buyout. I start fresh. That's just me. I'm sure the fear is the buyout. The fear is all the boosters that have pumped up so much money into this program because they read the same things we read. Top 3 recruiting class, where you're not getting top 3 results. So I just think that Jimbo Fisher is a case of somebody being exposed for not being as good as everybody thought they were.
And what does that top 3 recruiting class even mean? Well, honestly,
exactly. How many times have we seen that?
From the biggest pool of football players you will ever see, because you're literally incorporating every high school in the country, let alone internationally. Last thing I just want to say is he has won 2 national championships in his career as a head coach at Florida State, as the offensive coordinator at LSU. And at LSU, who do you have as starting quarterback? Who was it? Was Jamarcus Russell at the time, or was it Matt Flynn? Whoever it was.
Jamarcus
right?
Russell.
Okay, well, so NFL graded quarterback wins with Jameis Winston. NFL graded quarterback is at Texas A&M. So when you don't have NFL talent just fall into your lap, you can't get it done. He couldn't get it done with any of the quarterbacks he had there. His best quarterback there was Kellen Mond, who wasn't even a Jimbo Fisher recruit. Hayes King is gone. Zach Calzada is gone. The starter, who I can't think his name, Weidman might be gone if Max Johnson stays. Probably Max Johnson didn't do anything with him. What are you doing? I know we have one, but what are we doing?
Looking good on paper. That's about it. Looking good on paper.
I know who has the only answers. Yeti. We're going to hear from them right now. We'll be right back.
In 2006, we founded Yeti Coolers with a simple mission: build the cooler we use every day if it existed. One that was built for the serious outdoor enthusiasts rather than for mass discount retailers. One that could take the abuse we knew we'd put it through, out in the field and on the water. One that simply wouldn't break. We decided early on that production innovation would come from necessity and first-hand experience, not from market research and data analysis. Today, Yeti products perform when it matters most. Whether that be an excursion into the remote Alaskan wilderness, chasing redfish on the Gulf Coast, or just getting together with friends in the backyard, We make gear that helps you stay out longer, travel farther, and live harder. Hashtag built for the wild. You are watching.
Oh, I guess they didn't want to intro us back. So anyway,
there's no one time we're all three on the show. That's when the intro doesn't want to work.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
I was thinking the same thing.
Ashby's back this week on Moving and Change. You don't need to hear from her right now. We'll wait till later. That's what they're telling us. There we go. All right. So moving on. If you got a chance to enjoy this doozy, what a game it was. UCLA knocking off Washington State. And it was a game that you thought there would be a lot more scoring involved, but UCLA's defense came to play. So Carson Steele, 140 yards rushing on 30 carries, grinding it out, kind of keeping that Washington State offense at bay for the Bruins. And Chip Kelly getting a big Pac-12 win.
Yeah.
Chip Kelly has a defense finally.
Yeah, he does.
I mean, when I was seeing the end of this game, I was like, okay, this is an interesting one here. And the defense made a lot of plays for him. We always known Chip Kelly's offense to be high flying. He put up some solid numbers. I said Steele had the best numbers of their offensive guys, but he was the story of the day. They used them to grind it out. Something Chip Kelly's not known for doing, right? He's usually a guy that throws the ball laterally, throws the ball vertically, throws the ball left, any way he can, and sprinkles in the run, right? Some finesse run on there. He's giving it a little sprinkle running game, right? So not yesterday, he was grinding it out with his running back with the Steele, and then doing the sprinkling with the passing game. Okay, we're going to sprinkle it in there and find ways to move the ball. But the defense set the tone, which is, to me, that's the big story of the day. They were able to shut down Washington State's offense, 17 points. That is unheard of because Washington State and Washington were two teams that were lighting it up on the scoreboard in the Pac-12. So, very interesting game there, very interesting score, to say the least.
Yeah, turns out you can really be an effective defense when your opposing offensive line acts like a turnstile. And that's exactly what Washington State was. They were getting pressure on Cam Ward on 3-man rushes, 4-man rushes. They were dropping everybody they could into coverage. That's why they were so effective against the pass. And Cam Ward was in there just running around like a chicken without a head trying to find something, but all he found was just a taste of grass or turf or whatever's at the Rose Bowl because that's what he kept falling into. I mean, I would get lots as a first rounder. They all 8 first rounders, but they were all in the backfield. So Washington State has a major offensive line problem.
Yeah, I think that's Keenan. Like we talked about Jeff with running game. Keenan Jones had a really big game for UCLA, and look at Chip Kelly evolving. We talk about play callers thinking that they're better than the game and smarter than everybody else. The guy that sees the running game is working. I'm gonna try this novel concept. It's called keep running the ball, and then it ended up working out for him. I have to wonder if your future Washington State opponents, is this the blueprint on how to slow down the offense of the Cougs? You got something, people watch film, people are going to look at this tape. Could this be the way you slow that offense down? But for UCLA, yeah, the two things that stood out to me the most was the effectiveness of the running game and then Chip Kelly having a defense that can keep him in games moving forward.
Indeed. Well, we're going to slide back east and talk about our final game of the weekend. We're going to talk about the Terps and the Buckeyes. The Terps, another unrespected team, went out there and went toe-to-toe, but unfortunately, they couldn't last 12 rounds with Ryan Day and the Buckeyes. 37-17 was the final. Mike Loxley's team gave it a good shot. Forget it. Yeah.
Tagovailoa.
Tried. Hey, I like the effort. I respect the effort.
I respect it too.
Too many T's. Too many T's with syllables behind it. Okay. All right. The story of the day was Marvin Harrison Jr., 8 catches, 163 yards, and a touchdown. He was the reason why Ohio State's offense pulled away in the second half. It was a tight 3 quarters with those two teams, trying to get offense going. Both defenses played well. I think when you look at Maryland, very defensive-minded team, runs the ball very well, but inconsistent in the passing game, and we saw that before the half, right? You got no timeouts left. Yeah, no, not even that, right? You have no timeouts left. You're in field goal range already. You're supposed to be taking a shot at the end zone or throwing the ball away. You don't have time to spike it if you complete it in bounds. And what he throws the hitch in bounds, gets tackled, the time runs out, and you go in 10-10 at the half. So, yeah, it's that was on the quarterback. That wasn't on the coach, but nevertheless, you got to know the situation better. And Tua knows that situation. His younger brother, not so much. But you guys, final thoughts on this one before we get into the statement.
Just Buckeyes defense stepping up. I mean, holding Maryland to 7 points in the second half. Anytime you can score 27 points straight unanswered, you're doing the right thing. If you're Ohio State, it's another game for your quarterback, your new young starting quarterback to build off of. When you start heading into those big matchups, your Penn States, your Michigans, this guy can build off of. You already had that Notre Dame win, which I'm sure had him on cloud 12. Forget cloud 9. I think a win like this just helps to build off on that. Still some inconsistencies in the beginning of that game from Ohio State. I know Brock's going to mention that Ryan Day and Hartline's offense is not the best offense in the nation. I would definitely agree with him on that one. But I think there's some positives they can build off of. And for Maryland, in my opinion, the tail of the tape for this game for the Terps, not enough depth, man. Just not enough depth, and you can't make those kind of mistakes against an elite team. You can't stay in bounds. We can't throw pick sixes. We have to be aware of situations if you want to be in these kind of elite games and take the program next level. But I think if you're Ohio State, the biggest takeaway, 2 of them actually, your quarterback's improved play, and there's no doubt at all, if there was before, that Marvin Harrison definitely hit.
Yeah, I mean, McCord's play has improved, but I felt like sometimes Harrison Jr. was off there like me when I go bird watching. We're just waiting for the thing to come down, just hoping that, I mean, in my situation, I was watching bird. Marvin Harrison Jr. situation, he might get clobbered by a safety. Just waiting for that thing to come, like, oh, hello, So Kyle McCord's inability to consistently throw, in stride is highly concerning. But once again, not as concerning as that offensive scheme in general. I don't understand why everyone needs to have 11 personnel out of shotgun as your base offense, because it can be limiting at times, and we've seen it be limiting. And when they go against the big boys of Penn State and Michigan, we're going to see a bunch of these things that have kind of sparked up throughout the season concerning Ohio State's offense really come to fruition, in those matchups. I don't like Jim Knowles' defense. I don't think Jim Knowles' defense is built to handle Big Ten football. They don't like their edges, JTT or Jack Sawyer. I don't think they can actually set an edge. I think they're highly overrated. I don't think they can blitz effectively. I think when they blitz, they leave too many holes and voids that offenses can take advantage of, especially if they run the RPO. And then, what if Talia didn't throw a pick 6 when they're up 10-0, I believe? What, they go down there and they score 17-0. That could be a different game.
Good point.
Mike Locksley is a brilliant offense coordinator, but he's limited because he's at the University of Maryland. This is a national championship winning offensive coordinator who I think should take over the Alabama job when Nick Saban retires, not Lane Kiffin, but that's an argument for another time. This is Mike Locksley at Maryland. When you go against James Franklin at Penn State, when you go against Jim Harbaugh at Michigan, heck, you can go against Iowa, who doesn't even have an offense, and I wouldn't be as confident in Ohio State as I normally would in that scenario. So it's actually, even though they won comfortably because of their second half performance, there's still red flags around this Ohio State team that I have major questions about.
It's time for the statement. We get to talk about who we felt made the biggest statement yesterday in college football. Brock, You've been making all the statements this morning, man. So we're gonna start with you.
Thank you. My statement goes to the fact that you don't have to be smart to become a $10 million average annual value head coach in college football, as is the case of Mario Cristobal. Mario Cristobal, what he did yesterday is so baffling to me that I have no words to truly describe how I feel. What's more baffling, besides the fact that this happened yesterday, is the fact that it happened before to him when he was at Oregon against Stanford, and a game that Stanford ended up winning because of his mismanagement. I think Mario Cristobal has benefited from timing more than anything throughout his entire career. He benefited from time being Willie Taggart's offensive coordinator at Oregon. Therefore, when Willie Taggart left for FSU, he got that Oregon job that he didn't deserve. He has 2 Pac-12 championships, but one of them is fraudulent. One of them came in the COVID year when Washington was a team that should have went to that championship game. However, they couldn't field the team because the team was just got, a bunch of COVID things. And then in that same season, they got boat raced by Iowa State in the Fiesta Bowl. And then Iowa State has never been the same since that game as well. His kind of meltdown in his last year at Oregon when he lost the way he did to Utah. And obviously he left. He had that really bad year last year at Miami. And then he said to Paul Feinbaum, I got to replace so many of these guys. It's going to take time. Well, the thing that needs to be replaced is you. You're not a good head coach. You're not a good offensive mind. You wasted Justin Herbert's career at the University of Oregon. Your offensive coordinator at the University of Oregon during your best season, it was Marcus Arroyo, who went to UNLV and didn't do nothing and is now unemployed, and Andy Avalos, who might be Boise State's worst head coach in about 20 years. So your track record proves that you can't win consistently. You make really idiotic decisions. You can't call a good offense. What do you provide, honestly? And he talks about, we're trying to build our culture. What culture is that? Sucking? Because that's what I see on the field. And, that's what Miami wants to invest into for the rest of the year just because he's an alumni. And once again, like Texas A&M, you reap what you sow. And when you're 8 years down the line, he has $80 million in the bank from these guys, and you guys don't have an ACC title, let alone a national title. The only people that you have to blame is yourselves for hiring a coach like that. That's my statement for today.
Joe?
For me, got to credit where credit's due. I got to go with Brett Venables and Oklahoma. I think that was a really, really big signature win for the Sooners. We can talk about all the things that Texas did wrong and how they gave the game away. At the end of the day, when the triple zeros hit the clock, the winner was Oklahoma. And I think that if you follow college football, you know that one of the more prestigious programs in the nation is Oklahoma. Whether you're a fan of them or not, you know that when Oklahoma Sooners are doing well, it's a good thing for college football. And I think last season they were just so down, and they played bad football. They deserved all the criticism they received last year. There were a lot of people who questioned the coaching hiring, and I think him being able to win that game in the fashion that he won is big for the program, obviously big for the players. I think it was awesome to see that post-game interview with Dylan Gabriel yesterday. You could tell the emotion in the kid's voice, that it really meant a lot to him, that he was happy what he was able to do for himself and for his team. So I just think for Oklahoma, you made a statement that I think it's safe to say, and we say it all the time, and most times when we say it, it's not the case. But I feel confident in saying that Oklahoma back to being the Oklahoma Sooners football team we think about as far as tough defense, making big plays when need to be to get the game done, and just finding a way to win. I think the team made the biggest statement for me yesterday was Oklahoma.
Yeah, I'm going to go a little bit different route. Louisville and Maryland for sure showed us that whoever's doing these rankings for the top 25, you have no clue what you're doing.
You talking about us?
No, not us. Not us. Because we only do top 10s right now. So we can't even be thrown in there for top 25s. And they don't consider ours official anyway. So we won't even talk about ours. I think we're fine. However, the guys that are supposed to be the official guys, the guys who are supposedly putting together the top 25 that they rank their bowl games and all that other stuff off of, you have no idea what you're doing. Louisville showed you yesterday 25 is a joke. Maryland showed you yesterday they were unranked is a joke. And you have teams in there that are ranked getting smoked on a weekly basis. Okay? I really, really would like for people to, when you're doing your rankings, to look at these, and I'm talking about the AP. I'm talking about the Coaches Bowl. the coaches should be ashamed of themselves for not having these teams ranked. Okay, of all people, the coaches. All right, if you're looking at the film, if you're seeing these teams and you're watching them play, you know they're the top 25 teams. You know, and the sad part is these are all things that get factored in to the playoff, right? So you're gonna have teams that are top 10 that ain't top 10. I'm tired of seeing Clemson top 25 right now. We already know that they've already lost 2 games. They're offensively challenged. The defense is solid, but they're offensively challenged. Dabo's team is nowhere near as strong as it normally is. It doesn't belong there. They're going to take a couple more losses before the season's over. Okay, the teams that were undefeated and are still undefeated, that were sneaking in, that are sneaking into the top 25 now, y'all should be ashamed of yourself for leaving them out so long. So, at some point, we have to stop looking at helmets and deciding where people belong and look at what's on the field and start looking at where people belong. Just like we stop looking at helmets when we're drafting kids and going, well, he played for that school. He's not really that good. That school doesn't normally put out great talent at that position. Look at the film and tell me if that. Okay? We're watching guys transcend all of that traditional thinking. All right? So it's time we stop looking at teams and looking at the program and going, well, you know, it's that program. Oh, yeah, that program is always good. They should be top 25. Enough of looking at traditionally how a program is and look at how they are now. Okay? Teams that showed you that they're not top 10 don't belong there. Teams that show you that they're not top 25 don't belong there. Teams that are playing well enough to be top 25 deserve consideration. It's enough with the traditional looking at a program and taking it at face value and coming up with a stigma for it. It doesn't work. It only robs the kids. It only robs the fans of really good football. Go back to doing things the right way.
Amen. I agree with that. I think, too, for casual fans, they go by what they see. When the casual fan doesn't really follow college football, sees Clemson in the top 25, well, Clemson must be a great team. No, they're not. no, they're not.
And I hate people think that you're beating up on Clemson, Jeff. No. They just happen to be one example of this thing, right? Notre Dame, before that game yesterday was 10. They deserved it. They don't deserve to be in the top 20 right now. They deserve to fall to 21. Okay? They deserve to fall to 21 because they're going to lose another game or two. Okay, are they top 25? Yeah, but they're not a strong top 25. They're not 15. They're not 12. No, they need to fall about the 21. All right. Clemson needs to fall at about 29. Okay. And we can go down a few others too. But you know, it is what it is. North Carolina, love them to death. Are they top 10? I don't think so.
No, I don't think so.
No.
Top 10 offense.
Yeah. So we can look at teams and look at how they're playing and go, yeah, they deserve it. Instead of just looking at it and go, oh, North Carolina, and they're undefeated. Oh, they got to be top 10. No, they don't. You can be undefeated and not be top 10. Okay? Sometimes you are as good as who you are playing against. You know?
Yeah, that part.
In a level competition does, count. So before we wrap this up, I just wanted to say, I think we just need to go back to looking at what's on the field and judging from there, not judging by school, by prestige, by whatever it is, who we like, the popularity plays into that as well. FSU deserves a lot more credit than they're getting.
Great game yesterday.
Oh, yeah. So,
shout out to Colorado, finally getting off the snide, too, before we get out of here. I want to mention that, Coach Prime.
Yes, and a big win at the end. I know people, Danny Cavell and the detractors are still out there, but, it's always
pretty.
Listen, you win any way you can. You still don't have Travis Hunter. So think about that. They still don't have Travis Hunter. Yeah. The best defense player on both sides of the ball isn't there. So that's sad that there's one guy on both sides of the ball. But it's time to go. We got Moving the Chains coming up next. We hope you enjoyed your college football fix here as we finish out the college football weekend. Joe Cardozo, Brock Vieira, Jeff Barnes all saying have a great weekend. Enjoy the NFL games. There's one going on right now. Moving the changes on next. Stay tuned.